Hey, this is Kevin Syracuse. We're live outside here at Sports Hour. Hey, did you get that?
I understand it's football, but it's not football.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome into the Sports Hour here in Hendricks Hall on the SUNY Fredonia campus. I am Kevin Syracuse, along with Associate Director of Career Development and Bracketologist Chris LeGros. For the third week in a row, Chris, happy to have you, as always.
Thanks for having me again.
And after a very crazy first couple of rounds of the March Madness tournament, it started to die down a little bit this weekend as the teams who are supposed to be winning are now winning, other than Alabama, who lost after shooting 11 of 25 from the free throw line as the Bruins upset them last night.
Yeah, free throw shooting killed them, and they actually had they have 23 points in a 5-minute overtime. You're not going to win if you do that. So that was a big shocker to me.
So starting with the games that happened on Saturday, first, Oregon State defeated Loyola Chicago 65-58. Then we saw Baylor take down Villanova 62-51. Arkansas beat the Cinderella team, Oral Roberts, 72-70. And then unfortunately, Syracuse lost 62-46 to Houston. So before I get into yesterday's games, I figure we'll just talk a little bit about Saturday's action. So any thoughts that jump out to you? I mean, obviously we're both Syracuse fans, so if you want to start there and work our way back.
Well, Houston's defense played incredible that night. That was a great defensive effort by them. Syracuse could not hit shots. They couldn't get open looks. And, giving up only 62 points, that's not a bad defensive effort by them, but they just could not get open. So not surprised that happened, though. Houston's really good this year. So, the Oral Roberts almost pulled out the game at the end. That they had. They just missed a three-pointer at the end, at the buzzer, but they only lost by 2. So Arkansas, they just got by 2 games in a row. Texas Tech, and then Oral Roberts now. So.
Yeah, I want to go back to the Syracuse game. So we were talking about it before the show. Houston has a great team. As they were winning, they were up by 14 late in the second half last time I checked. I'll have to double check on that. But they're a great team, but at the same time, I think it was just more of a case of Syracuse playing bad than it was Houston playing good the other night. Because if Syracuse could shoot, if they had an offense, that would be a totally different game. They were 28% from the field, and you're not going to win in March Madness. You're not going to win at all if you shoot 28% from the field.
No, nobody got hot that night. Nobody on that team could make baskets. They weren't getting open shots. It was just even when they did, they were missing easy layups. They were missing short baskets. They could not make baskets. It's just that you're not going to win, like you said, if you can't shoot even 30% from the field. You're going down. So.
And real quick before we talk about Syracuse more. Oregon State is on a 10-0 run right now. Last I checked, it was 52-38. It is now 52-48 with 6 minutes left. So Oregon State is making it real interesting here.
Wow, I heard they've been playing much better offense, scoring a lot of points. Beating Loyola Chicago is no easy feat. That was very impressive, more so than the higher seeds they beat earlier. So that impressed me, but I still think Houston's going to pull this out. I just don't think. I don't know. I can't see them coming all the way back.
Yeah, they don't really have that dominant go-to scorer, but I think they're just a balanced team and they play great defense.
Yep. And that'll do it too in the tournament. You want to be able to score from a lot of places. If someone's not playing well, you want to be able to have somebody else step up. So that's good.
Now going back to Syracuse, speaking of having guys step up, Buddy Boeheim, he was averaging 27.5 points per game. in the tournament leading up to this game. He was held to 12 points and 6 rebounds. Joe Girard had 12 points. A lot of those came in garbage time. And that was pretty much it. Those are the 2 leading scorers. After that, Quincy Guerrier had 8 points. And actually, he declared for the draft today. The sophomore forward, he averaged a little over 13 points and 8 rebounds. He's testing the water, so it doesn't mean that he's totally done at Syracuse, but he wants to see where his stock is right now. And he's going to talk to some agents. And if they think that he's ready, he's going to put his name into the draft. But if not, he'll come back for his junior season. But yeah, I mean, that was pretty much it for Syracuse the other night. I think everyone was expecting Buddy Boeheim to just drop a ton of threes again, and they weren't falling, and no one else stepped up.
Houston must have had a plan to stop him. They were all over him all night, and nobody else was able to step up and make shots. I'm happy Guerrier's testing the waters a bit. He deserves it. If he sees he's going to get a good draft spot, he should go for it. But I really hope he comes back. He was their best player early in the season. He was, for a time, averaging a double-double and carrying the team before Boeheim got hot late. So I'd love to have him back, but I don't blame him for trying.
Now, working our way back, so going over to the Oral Roberts Arkansas game, like Chris said, the Oral Roberts, the 15-seeded Oral Roberts, almost pulled off another upset. Max Asmus, he almost dropped a game-winning 3 at the buzzer. That would have been one of the best shots in March Madness history if he could have pulled that off, and it was just inches short.
Yeah, it's so close at the end for them. They hung in there. They didn't get blown out. Any of those teams could have run away from those games, and Oral Roberts hung around. Very, very impressive run by them. A shame they didn't get that last one to fall, but good things for them next year, I hope.
Now, when we were making the brackets in class, Oral Roberts, they won the conference, correct?
Yes, they did. They won their conference tournament.
So if they didn't win, well, regardless of if they won the conference or not, did you see this team making the run that they did? And not even advancing this far, did you even expect them to win a game in the tournament and be this relevant?
It's hard to say if 15 is going to do that. As well as they've played, as great a player as Amos has been, it's hard to predict if 15 is going to go that far. I can't say I'd see that coming. I'd hard pressed to find anybody who did. I mean, maybe you win a game, but to win 2 and come very close to a third, you just can't see that coming.
Yeah, and didn't I see the stat that no 15 seed has ever reached the Elite Eight?
Nope, none have. None
like,
have.
Like I said, they were inches away. That shot was inches away from dropping into the hoop.
That would have made things very exciting tomorrow night, but just a shame. Just a shame that didn't go in.
Now, the other game that I want to talk about from Saturday, Baylor and Villanova. Like I said, Baylor took this one 62-51. Villanova, they won a couple games, and I think that surprised some people. I even had Winthrop winning over Villanova just because I thought the loss of Connor Gillespie would have been that much of a defeat for the Wildcats. But, like I said, they won a couple games, but they just ran into a great team in Baylor. Do you think that was the case? Baylor was just a better team, or do you think if they had Gillespie, it would have been a different story and maybe they could have pulled off the win?
I feel like if they had Gillespie, they might not have been a 5 seed. They might have been, they might have been a little higher in the bracket. It likely would have come down to them playing each other anyway. Baylor is really good, but I think Villanova hung around the first half. They had a 7-point lead. With Gillespie around, maybe they would have kept that closer, but Baylor is that good, and I'm not surprised they won this game.
So moving on to Sunday's games. Well, real quick, the last game, we already mentioned this, but Oregon State and Loyola, like I said, Oregon State won. But the reason I brought that up is because the score is now 55-52. Oregon State keeps closing the gap. 4 minutes left.
Wow, that would be a gigantic upset. First 12 seed ever if they win to make it to the Final Four.
Man, that'd be crazy. And they weren't really expected to be that good either. I mean, they just kind of went on a run towards the end of the year, but that's That's
yeah.
a good sign. Or that's a sign of a good basketball team.
Yeah.
When you win late in the year.
They stole a bid. I mean, they were not going to make the tournament, and they stole a bid from probably Colorado State or Louisville. And then they went out and they won games. And you love to see it when a team gets in and then does some damage like that. Even when it's from a big power conference like that, they're not a regular in the tournament. So in a way for them, it's a huge deal for them. So they're hanging around, and Houston better put them away soon.
Now just a few minutes left. So going to yesterday's games, I'll lump these two together because they're both 1 seed. So Gonzaga and Michigan both won, like I said. So what are your takeaways from these two games?
Well, Gonzaga doesn't surprise me at all. They're such a good team. They're still the odds-on favorites. But Michigan, I am very impressed that they've come back from that injury to livers, that they're playing so well. They have beating a Florida State team. That's a very good, deep team. I'm surprised. I'm surprised and very impressed. They can beat anybody at this point.
Yeah. So Michigan now plays UCLA tomorrow night at 9:57, and then Gonzaga will be playing USC at 7:15. And that was the other game that we haven't mentioned yet. USC and Oregon. The Trojans took this one 82-68. Any thoughts here? Battle of the Pac-12 rivals. Both teams got in. I mean, actually, with Oregon State too, 3 and UCLA, a lot of Pac-12 teams that made the tournament, and all 4 of them made a little bit of a run here, but it comes short for Oregon. They had that first game was given to them because of COVID with VCU, but they had a great second game. Mm-hmm. And who was that? I'm blanking.
Kansas.
Against Kansas, yeah. And now they came up short against USC.
Yeah, USC's got a top 3 pick, that Mobley, and he's going to be really good in the NBA. So it's not surprising they beat Oregon. They're going to give Gonzaga probably their toughest test they've had yet, and it'll be interesting to see how Gonzaga can pull that out, if they can.
Another update, 58-56 now, 2:22 left, so it's getting really interesting. And then we have at 9:57, so in less than an hour, we have the 3 seed Arkansas taking on the 1 seed Baylor.
I had Baylor from the beginning, or not Baylor, Arkansas winning this game from the beginning. And I just thought Arkansas was playing so well going into the tournament. Now I'm not so sure. They've kind of squeezed by the last couple teams. They got away with one with Oral Roberts. They got away with one with Texas Tech. They better not play that way against Baylor, because Baylor will put them away early if they do. So I don't know, but I'm going to stand by it and think that Arkansas is going to win that one, though. Excuse me.
So, like I said, Houston just scored, so 60-56. But like I said, USC and Gonzaga tomorrow at 7:15, UCLA and Michigan, and then, yeah, I can't believe that's already the Final Four, because I'm looking at the schedule here. I'm like, wait, Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four. It's all coming so fast, but yeah, we're into the Elite 8 right now, and next Saturday starts the Final Four.
Mm-hmm. That's right. It's going to be a great Final Four, whoever it is. It's fun. We haven't seen. We've had a whole tournament without Duke, without Kentucky, without most of it without Kansas and Carolina. I think it's great that these other teams are getting a chance.
All right, and real quick, I know we both had Gonzaga winning the tournament when March Madness started. Are you still going with them?
Yeah, I haven't seen any reason to change it now, so sticking with.
Me too. I'm going with Gonzaga. So thank you for coming on, Chris. And next we will have Meyer to talk about the other basketball league, the NBA, as it was a crazy week with the trade deadline. So stay tuned for that in 2 minutes.
We've been down there. You gotta do the same. All you do is sign. So don't get nervous. Sign your name. For selective service. It takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. For selective service.
Hey guys, if you're about to turn 18, you've got to register with Selective Service. It's simple. Just go down to the post office, fill out a card, and turn it in. That's all there is to it. There's no draft now. You're just adding your name to Selective Services list in case there's a national emergency.
So if you're 18 now, Selective Service, you gotta get down. Post office.
Register with Selective Service. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the law.
Takes no time, just sign on the line at the post office. Selective Service.
What a great time for a drink. What a great time for a drink. What a great time for a drink.
If it's time for a drink this many times a day, you're not a social drinker. You're a problem drinker. And you could be well on your way to really messing up your life. Think about it. Talk to somebody about it. Do something about it before it's too late. A message in the interest of your better health from the American Medical Association.
This is not a commercial. If you think measles, mumps, whooping cough, or polio are nothing to worry about, you'd better think again, because they could make your child go blind or deaf. They can cripple or kill. To protect children, you have to get them immunized. Get them their shots. It costs nothing or very little, so get it done now by your doctor or local health center. Your child's future is in your hands. Don't let her down.
A message in the interest of better health from the American Medical Association.
Happy to have Meyer Mikulski back with us to talk about the NBA. And Meyer, it was a busy week as it was the trade deadline last Thursday, and we saw a large number of deals come in, 16. That was the most in, I can't remember how many years, but I want to say 2003. Do you know that stat?
I think it might have been 2008, but I could be wrong about that.
Well, it was the most number of trades that we've seen in years. So before we get into all the nooks and crannies, any trades that really stick out to you? Maybe some teams that you think really improved, or some teams that really took a turn for the worse?
So the trade that stood out to me the most was the one between Chicago and Orlando. I was actually surprised when the Magic dealt Nikola Vucevic to the Bulls, but I feel like it was actually a beneficial trade for both teams.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be talking about Orlando a lot here because the Magic were pretty much, that was the main team that made all the trades because they're pretty much in sell mode right now.
Yeah, they traded 3 of their starters.
And I think, honestly, for Orlando, I'm fine with it because those guys have been there for 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
And they've only been, what, a 7 or an 8 seed? And that's pretty much their ceiling, I would say. It's like, okay, if they haven't been able to do anything in 7, 8 years together, I don't think they're really going to be able to jump into that 4 or 5 seed, or even 2 or 3. So you might as well sell while you can and get a lot of prospects back, a lot of draft picks, and some players that can help now, shut off some money, save some money, and see where you can go from there.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like they're a long-term winner in this trade deadline.
Yeah, so do you think the Magic were winners or losers for now, but winners in the long run?
Yes.
So do you think Chicago was a winner right now then? Do you like that trade for the Bulls?
Yes, because it gives Zach LaVine a reassurance that the Bulls, they believe in him and what he could become. And also entices him to stay in Chicago. Because now they have more of a chance of making the playoffs than they did at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, so as long as we're talking about that trade, I'll just give the details. So Chicago acquired Nikola Vucevic and Al-Farouq Aminu. I didn't realize the contracts on these guys. Vucevic was getting $26 million. Al-Farouq Aminu just under $10 million. So then Orlando required Wendell Carter Jr. He's got about $5.5 million. Otto Porter Jr. $28.5 million. I forgot that he signed that.
Yeah, the Wizards paid him handsomely.
Yeah, for not a lot. He's just been average at best. So he's getting $28.5 million. I think the Magic said that they're not going to waive him. They're going to keep him on the team. But the other two big trades here that the Magic got out of that, a 2021 first-round pick and a 2023 first-round pick.
Are you talking about the Chicago trade still?
Yeah. So yeah, the Magic, even though they got rid of Vucevic and Farid Aminu, they also they acquired Wendell Carter, Otto Porter, and 2 first-round picks. So now, going back to, I'll just go right down the list here in order. So the first trade that we saw had J.J. Redick and Nicolo Melli going to Dallas for James Johnson, Wesley Iwundu, and a second-round pick.
I like that trade for the Mavericks, but I don't like it for the Pelicans. Because Melli and Redick, they were really the only 2 knockdown shooters for the Pelicans. And now you don't have any knockdown shooters. And their best shooter is Josh Hart, but he's inconsistent.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't even realize that J.J. Redick got traded until I was going back and I was like, I totally didn't even see on trade deadline day when I was refreshing Twitter and looking at all the trades. I didn't even see that he got traded.
It was one of the last trades that happened. I think it happened right before Oladipo.
Yeah, so is J.J. Redick, I feel like we haven't heard much about him since he left Philadelphia.
Well, that's because this year in particular, he's been struggling from 3. But that's because they rely on him so much as their shooter because they don't have many shooters on their team. So, I mean, maybe
Dallas can use him to their advantage. You put him with Kristaps Porzingis and Luka Doncic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a nice little big 3
and
right
Luka,
there.
he's definitely going to get those guys involved because he likes to drive and kick a lot.
Yeah, and Luka's a great all-around player, so that could be a great duo to watch right there. Even if it's not a dynamic duo, it could definitely be a nice duo down in Dallas. So then next we saw Corey Joseph. Man, I'm looking at these contracts here. $12.6 million, Corey Joseph. For what?
Just a veteran backup, really.
A veteran backup's getting paid $12.6 million. Sacramento shipped him to Detroit and 2 second-round picks for DeLon Wright, who has a $9 million contract.
I actually like this trade better for the Kings, but I felt like a contender could have used DeLon Wright.
What are his stats this year? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't know off the top of my head, but he's been all right this season. He probably averages like about 10 points a game.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't think the Kings are really too much of a threat, but I think the trade definitely helps them. So, moving on, Denver acquired JaVale McGee from Cleveland for Isaiah Hartenstein and 2 second-round picks. JaVale McGee goes back to Denver, where his main Shaqtin' a Fool days were. And his contract, I mean, $4.2 million. So I like this trade for Denver. They could always use, or not they, but any team could always use some more presence in their front court.
Because they needed a rim protector. They lacked rim protection since they lost Jeremy Grant and Mason Plumlee to free agency. So now McGee can step in and assume the role that Mason Plumlee played last season.
Yeah, and Cleveland's not really that big of a threat this year, so it's not like they needed McGee. So I think it's a good trade to get 2 second-round picks out of it and a player. So, yeah, good trade there for both teams. And then the next one, like we said, Chicago and Orlando with their big trade. Denver again, and Orlando. So Aaron Gordon and Gary Clark went out to the Mile High City for Gary Harris, R.J. Hampton, and a first-round pick. So I think Orlando got a great deal here again. I know they're shipping away one of their stars in Aaron Gordon, but Gary Harris, a large cap hit, $19.1 million, but they got R.J. Hampton, a former first-round pick, and both those guys are young players who can help this Magic team, and they get a first-round pick again.
I also like this trade for both teams because now we know what direction the Magic are headed in. And for the Nuggets, Aaron Gordon can play that role that Jeremy Grant played down in the bubble last season.
And moving on, a trade between Sacramento and Miami. I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name.
Bjelica?
Sure, yeah. How do you say it?
Nemanja Bjelica.
So Miami acquired him for Mo Harkless and Chris Silva.
I think this was an underrated move for the Heat, and he could play the role that Kelly Olynyk previously played for them. Even though Bielitsa, he's been struggling from 3 this year, he was just coming off a career year last season.
Well, speaking of Kelly Olynyk, he was traded to Houston along with Avery Bradley and a first-round pick for Victor Oladipo.
Yeah, this was a win for the Heat. I feel like the Rockets could have got more for Victor Oladipo, and the Heat didn't even have to give up any of their young players to acquire him.
Well, I mean, Olynyk and Bradley are 2 nice veterans, and you get a first-round pick.
But still, you could have got more for Victor Oladipo.
You think?
Yes.
He really hasn't been the same Victor Oladipo that he was a couple years ago before his injury in Indiana, though. So, I mean, maybe that's why his stock was down a little bit. Like, if you traded the 2018-19 Victor Oladipo...
Yeah, he probably would have got probably got 3 first-round picks for him.
Yeah. But, I don't know what's going on with Houston. They're a mess right now. So I think anything is going to help them. They just need a clean slate, and I think this trade definitely helps.
I mean, they do have all those picks from the Westbrook trade.
Yeah, that too.
And Harden.
So Houston's a team like Orlando, a lot of picks coming up, and Oklahoma City too. A lot of draft picks. So look for Houston, Oklahoma City, and Orlando in the next few years to maybe make a little bit of a run here with all their draft picks. Now, another trade that we saw had Norman Powell going from Toronto to Portland for Gary Trent Jr. and Rodney Hood. I think I like this trade for both teams.
I like this trade more so for Portland than I do for Toronto. But I feel like Powell, he provides scoring, and he could give the Blazers defensive toughness at the guard position, which they've been lacking for years. And for the Raptors, it's unclear what direction they're really headed in, but I feel like Gary Trent and Rodney Hood, they could really bridge that gap off the bench for the Raptors.
Well, I mean, now Portland has a lineup with Damian Lillard, C.J. McCollum, Derek Jones Jr., and Norman Powell, Robert Covington, Carmelo Anthony, Yusuf Nurkic, Enes Kanter. They have Zach Collins, Nasir Little. They have a really solid team. And Portland's always a team that can just turn it on at the end of the year with Lillard. Another trade that we had, Lou Williams. Sweet Lou went to Atlanta with 2 second-round picks for Rajon Rondo.
Yeah, this was a win for the Clippers. The Clippers they desperately needed a point guard. So good for them on that trade. And it makes them look more threatening now.
You know, I saw Stephen A. say that pretty much the same thing, that they really needed a point guard. They need to be able to contend with the Lakers.
Yeah.
But do they really need a point guard?
Yes, because Reggie Jackson and Patrick Beverly, they're really 2 guards that play point guard. So that's why trading for Rondo made a lot more sense, because they needed somebody that could get them into the flow of their offense.
Yeah, I mean, I always think Patrick Beverly and Reggie Jackson are both underrated. I think they take a lot of criticism, and I think they're decent. But, I mean, Rajon Rondo is good, though, so nothing against that there. Just a minute left, so the other big trade, Chicago also acquired Daniel Theis from Boston and Troy Brown Jr. This is a 3-team trade, so Boston acquired Luke Cornett and Moritz Wagner, and then Washington got Chandler Hutchison and Daniel Gafford. And then the other big one was the Celtics also acquired Evan Fournier from Orlando for Jeff Teague, a 2 second-round picks, and Teague was bought out, and he just was claimed by the Bucks today. So I think that will do it. Any final thoughts on the trade deadline here this year, Meyer?
I feel like it's been better than the past couple years, especially with the Vucevic trade.
Yeah, it was definitely pretty interesting. Knicks only made 1 trade. Austin Rivers is gone. They got Terrence Ferguson, but they waived him. So nothing really for the Knicks. But Meyer, thank you for coming on. And next we'll have Josh to come on and talk about the NHL.
To be the best at anything, you've got to be physically fit. Train hard. You've got to be sharp mentally and keep yourself in top shape. You've got to learn all there is to know about your sport and be a team player. And most of all, you must have the burning desire to be the best. Incidentally, That's exactly what it takes to be a Marine. Sports and the Marine Corps are natural partners because the demands are the same. Teamwork, pride, discipline, and physical fitness. If you're interested in developing to your full athletic potential, the Marine Corps Sports Program offers an opportunity to go as far as your athletic talent and desire will take you, even as far as the Olympic Games. If you seek the challenge of going out for the world's finest team, maybe you can be one of us, the few, the proud, the Marines.
You know, every mother wants their new baby to be healthy. I know that's how I felt about mine. But the mothers of these babies were not so lucky. These babies were born with the AIDS virus. Right now, there's no cure, but you can help prevent the spread of AIDS. If you're sexually active, please use a condom because it'll help prevent AIDS. Do it for yourself. Do it for your partner. Do it for the babies.
It would be nice if latex condoms were automatic. But since they're not, using them should be. Simply because a latex condom used consistently and correctly will prevent the spread of HIV.
Some people say the press goes too far sometimes.
Sorry, I don't think it's appropriate to comment at this time.
But how far is too far?
What about the allegations?
Had they stopped here, you may never have known about Watergate.
No comment. Please, no comment.
Or here, you may never have been fully informed about the environmental crisis.
Perfectly appropriate behavior.
Within policy. Would you say that secret activities are within policy?
Look, no comment.
Did you get authorization?
No, it was illegal. I said I cannot comment at this time.
Or had they stopped here, you may never have known if it concerned an issue that concerned you.
I'd like you to check the record.
Who else is involved? Who monitored this activity, sir?
Who approved the funding? The committee approved it.
Now you say the committee was involved, sir?
No.
To protect your right to be informed.
I have nothing more to say.
How far should the press go? To learn more about the free press, contact the First Amendment Center.
Welcome back to Sports Hour. When Sports Hour started, the Sabres were winning 3-0. Right now it is 3-3 with a minute and a half to go.
56 seconds exactly.
We're with Josh Schmidt, by the way.
Hello.
So Josh was saying, Kevin, we might win, and I said, there's way too much time to still lose.
Yeah, I jumped the gun a little bit on this one. We'll have to see how it pans out, though.
So we're going to keep refreshing the score. Also, speaking of refreshing scores, right when Meyer got off the set, Houston, it went final. They beat Oregon State 67-61. So we do have a final there. Houston advances, but yeah, so the Sabres, 47 seconds left, 3-3.
There's still time. And there's overtime and a shootout. Why did I say that?
Who's in net tonight?
Olmark, so that's good.
Oh, okay, Olmark's back.
Yeah, so that's good. But
so starting with the other games, once we talk about these games, we're going to save some time to talk about the Sabres, and we might know a final score by then. But starting with Friday's game, we had Winnipeg and Calgary, where the Jets took this one 3-2.
Yeah, this is a big game for Calgary. I mean, they're trying to get back into the playoff race here in the North, and they just fall up short here to Winnipeg. But there's still hope. I mean, there's a lot of time left in the season. Standings are looking pretty good in their favor, so hopefully they can keep plugging away here. They got a pretty good team, and it seems to be they're starting to figure it out with their new coach, and Daryl Sutter. He had success in LA in 2014 and 2013 or 2015 when they won 2013 and one other year was when them and Chicago were going back and forth. So Sutter's had success in recent years in LA, but we'll see what he can do here in Calgary. It looks like they might make a push for the playoffs, though.
Do you think that Winnipeg can win this division with Toronto? I mean, Toronto has a really good team. But the Jets are still hanging in there. They're only 2 points behind right now. Toronto has 46 points, Winnipeg 44. And it's been like that the whole year so far with Toronto number 1, Winnipeg number 2. So it's only 2 points. but do you see Toronto slipping up here?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on. I talked about this on my podcast the other night with my buddies, and it depends on what's going to happen here at the trade deadline. If Winnipeg makes a big splash and goes for Matthias Ekholm of the Nashville Predators, who Toronto is also targeting among other American teams, it could be really, really bad for Toronto because that back half on Winnipeg is already good, along with Connor Hellebuck in net. And if Matthias Ekholm gets added to that six-man defensive core, they're going to be a big force to be reckoned with there. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. The trade deadline's coming soon, but I think if Toronto can add Ekholm, it's over. They have that North Division on lock.
Now, two other teams who have been neck and neck all year pretty much, Vegas and Colorado. This was a game from Saturday where the Golden Knights won this one 3-2 in overtime.
Yeah, so this is another one of those sort of big games. I mean, Vegas is trying to win the West here, and Colorado's given them a lot of troubles. I mean, Philip Grubauer has turned on the Jets. Like, he is unstoppable, it seems, right now. He's putting up Vezina Trophy numbers. He is well above league average in goals against and save percentage and things like that. And not to mention you got Nate McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, Cale Makar, Bowen Byram might be coming in soon, Gabriel Landeskog, Nazem Kadri, Burakovsky. So you have a lot of weapons here on Colorado, but Vegas at the same time has a lot of weapons themselves. And Mark Stone, one of the takeaway kings of the league. Alex Pietrangelo, Marc-Andre Fleury has also been standing on his head. Robin Leonard seems to be back from his injury. So these two teams are definitely the juggernauts of the West, and it's going to be interesting to see who takes on possibly Toronto or Winnipeg in the Western Conference Final, because now we know the North will be taking on the West and the East will be playing the Central when it comes to playoff time.
Yeah, I was going to say, taking a look at those two divisions, which division do you think is easier to win right now? Do you think it would be easier to win the North between Toronto and Winnipeg, or the West with Vegas and Colorado?
Oh, just between those two?
Yeah.
Well, I would say, I think, as I said before, depending.
I'll put it this way. If you were a third team, which division would you rather be in right now?
I would rather be in the West, because once you get lower than Colorado, it's pretty wide open. I mean, Minnesota is in third in the West right now, and St. Louis is fourth, and actually, no, I'm sorry, Nashville is now fourth. They came out of the gutter. They were in seventh a few weeks ago, and now they're in fourth place in a playoff spot after a win over St. Louis last night, I believe. So that whole Central Division, or that whole Western Division underneath Colorado in second, is very much up for grabs still, unless your name is Anaheim. Even LA still has a shot at this one. So I think that would be the team. That would be the division I'd want to be in right now, because the Central is kind of set. Or I'm sorry, Nashville is in the Central.
I was gonna say,
it's been a Monday.
I was say, is there a new format here?
No, Nashville is in the Central. That's my fault. But Arizona is the team that's starting to move up here. So Arizona is definitely creeping up here on St. Louis. But I still would say the West, because St. Louis, Minnesota, Arizona, Los Angeles, those teams can all easily make the bottom two spots in the playoffs. And it's just going to have to see how this one shakes out here.
Well, Josh, I'm sorry to break it to you, but the Sabres just
Yep,
lost.
I saw Aaron's little signal there. Of course they did. 18 in a row. We're making history, baby. Let's keep going. Let's go for 19.
How? You're up 3-0. How do you blow it?
This team is cursed. They literally just said, do you want to make the Buffalo Bills good? And the Pagulas were like, yeah, that sounds great. And they're like, okay, the Sabres have to be bad for the next, I don't know, how many years? Just pick a number. That's how long they got to be bad for. So it's tough. But I'm the normal optimist here, so I'm looking forward to next season already, and I'm pretty excited, actually. So I don't know why, but I'm pretty excited. Here we go again.
Well, moving on now to two teams that are in the East Division with the Sabres, Washington and New York. And the Capitals took this one 5-4. This was yesterday.
Yeah, and the Capitals have had a real stranglehold here on the East so far, and they've actually been battling with the Islanders for that top spot in the division, and they take a 2-point lead with a win last night. So that's big for Washington there, and it's. I was talking to a couple buddies that are on a Washington Capitals podcast, and they were saying they're getting vibes from when they won in 2018. So honestly, I could see a rematch in the final of Vegas-Washington, and I honestly don't know who I could pick for that one. If it's Vegas-Washington in the final, I think I have to take Vegas because they've gotten a lot better since their first year in the league, and I think it'd be a very good series. It'd be another nail-biter down to Game 7.
While Washington overtook the Islanders, they now have 50 points, the Islanders 48. And, we're talking about the Islanders for the last couple of weeks, saying how good of a team they have, but the Capitals, like you said again, they reloaded again.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Capitals, they lost Braden Holtby in the offseason. They signed Henrik Lundqvist. He goes down with a heart issue, I should say. And then they have to sign Craig Anderson. And they have Ilya Samsonov, their knight in shining armor. And then all of a sudden, he gets COVID, he gets injured, he doesn't play very well. And then none other than a former Sabres draft choice, Vitek Vanacek. We had the draft pick that picked him. He comes in and is absolutely incredible for the team. So they've really lucked out here on goaltending. And they've had career years from Nick Jensen, John Carlson, they're calling him Johnny Norris because he predicted to win the Norris Trophy. Alex Ovechkin, as always. Nick Backstrom has found a resurgence. So literally every team has found luck this year except for the Sabres. So it's just another one of those years.
One other game we want to talk about from yesterday, Nashville and Chicago. The Predators won this one 3-2.
Right. So this was the game where I was talking about how Nashville goes into the playoff picture. So Nashville was in 7th, and now they are in 4th with 37 points. But because they have more regulation wins than the Blackhawks, they are now technically in that 4th place spot. So Chicago could very easily bounce back into this. I mean, it's tied in points right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how this one shakes out. This is one of those other divisions where you don't know who might even win it. So I think, Tampa's in 1st right now, but Carolina's right behind them with 49. And we all know Nikita Kucherov is going to magically become healthy by the playoffs, and because there's no cap in the playoffs. The Lightning are $18 million over the cap right now, but because there's so much in LTIR, that doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter until the playoffs, and then you can bring everyone off LTIR, and there you go. You have a Stanley Cup, possibly winning Stanley Cup team.
So what is the playoff format this year? Is it 4 teams from each division?
Yeah, so the top 4 teams from each division make it into the playoffs, and then I don't believe that the divisions meet each other until the conference finals. So I think, say it would shake out like it is right now. Tampa would play Nashville, Carolina would play Florida. The winners of those games would then play each other, and then the winner of that would play the winner of the East in the conference finals. So it's kind of sort of just like a normal year. Except you only have 4 teams coming out of each division instead of possibly 6 out of the Central and only 4 out of the East, or 5 and 5. So it's 5 and 5. So it's a little different this year, but I think it's still going to be just as competitive and just basically the same.
So which conferences or which divisions play each other?
The West and the North, and the East and the Central.
Okay. All right. So. Yeah, I didn't even think about that because I was just thinking I'm so used to the 8 teams 1 through 8, but when you were talking about all the alignments with the divisions and then with Nashville and the North and the South, I was like, wait a second, what is the playoff?
Well, it's funny because if the Sabres would have done good, we could have actually had a Stanley Cup final of Toronto-Buffalo. And that is something that this team absolutely crushed for me. I would have loved to see that, but it's fine.
Well, speaking of the Sabres, we have a few minutes left to talk about the team now. I don't know how much there is left to talk about.
Well, yeah.
But we do have the trade
positives.
deadline.
Yes, there are some positives coming up. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so we did see a trade this past week. Eric Staal was shipped to Montreal for a 3rd and a 5th round pick. I like this trade, do you?
Yeah, this was a very good trade. Eric Staal did not want to be here. He clearly didn't want to play in Buffalo. I'm sure if we would be doing better and Eichel wasn't injured and Kruger wasn't, Kruger, I think that he would have been playing much better. But this is a guy that's at the end of his career. He's up at the end of the year, and you're not going to get anything for him after the deadline. So you got to trade him now, or you're going to get nothing. So this is probably the most you're going to get. They did retain half of his salary, which I don't really care about because your cap's not really much of an issue right now. You're not going to try to make any big moves at the deadline to make a push for the playoffs. So they could have probably tried for a second, but the third and the fifth is just fine for me because they replenished their fifth that they gave up in the Wayne Simmons trade, and they also replenished their third that they lost in the Jimmy Vesey trade.
Now, real quick, just 30 seconds. I saw a rumor that they could ship. Now, this is just a projected trade that had Taylor Hall going to Boston for Jake DeBrusk, a first-round pick, and one other player. What do you think about that?
That one other player is Jack Studnicka, and that would be the best trade possible for Taylor Hall because he is another one of those players that's up at the end of the year, and that brings his trade value down a lot. We would have to retain about probably half of his contract. But that would be a very good trade. Jake DeBrusk is a very good left winger. Jack Studnicka would probably be a third-line center behind Eichel and Cousins, so you get a good center spine, and you have two first-round picks in next year's draft, which is projected to be better than this year's draft as well.
Well, we'll see what happens. The trade deadline is coming up in a couple of weeks. Josh, thank you for coming on. And to close out the show, we will have Aaron coming on once again to talk about NFL free agency.
We've been down there. You gotta do the same. All you do is sign. So don't get nervous. Sign your name. For selective service. It takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. For selective service.
Hey guys, if you're about to turn 18, you've got to register with Selective Service. It's simple. Just go down to the post office, fill out a card, and turn it in. That's all there is to it. There's no draft now. You're just adding your name to Selective Service's list in case there's a national emergency.
So if you're 18 now, Selective Service, you gotta get down to the post office.
Register with Selective Service. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the law.
Takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. Selective Service.
What a great time for a drink. What a great time for a drink. What a great time for a drink.
If it's time for a drink this many times a day, you're not a social drinker. You're a problem drinker. And you could be well on your way to really messing up your life. Think about it. Talk to somebody about it. Do something about it before it's too late. A message in the interest of your better health from the American Medical Association.
This is not a commercial. If you think measles, mumps, whooping cough, or polio are nothing to worry about, you'd better think again, because they could make your child go blind or deaf. They can cripple or kill. To protect children, you have to get them immunized. Get them their shots. It costs nothing or very little, so get it done now by your doctor or local health center. Your child's future is in your hands. Don't let her down.
A message in the interest of better health from the American Medical Association.
Welcome back to Sports Hour. We now have Aaron Semper joining us now for the NFL segment. And Aaron, before we get into free agency, this week I want to take a look at the free agents by position. We're going to talk about the guys who have signed and guys who have yet to sign by position. Try to do the offense this week, defense next week. If we need a third week, we'll take it. But first, we have some news with the Bills as they have a new name for their stadium. It just came out a little bit before the show. It is now known as Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield Stadium. So they'll probably go with Highmark Stadium. To be honest, as a Bills fan, I don't really like this. I just want it to be called the Ralph Wilson Stadium. That's what I've known it to be. I did like New Era. I was just getting used to calling it that. Then it was Bills Stadium, but now it's Highmark. I don't know how I feel about that.
I got no words. I'm not really a Bills fan, but that must be weird, like changing up everything. And I know it was only New Era for what, like 4 or 5 years, maybe a little more. That. Yeah, so that was definitely it's gonna be a weird adjustment.
And another thing about the Bills, I just want to take a couple minutes to talk about the Bills because we had a couple other signings this week. The biggest one was Matt Burrita. And the reason I want to bring that up is because last week we were talking about what the Bills need to do with the positions that I was saying that they needed to address this offseason. My offseason wish list included a pass rusher, a tight end, a running back, and either a nickel corner, a cornerback 2, a hybrid, somewhere, some guy in that defense to help opposite Trey White and to cover the tight ends like Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, Travis Kelce, because they're going to be playing a lot of big tight ends this year. So I really like that Matt Burrita signing because that's exactly what I was telling you last week.
Yep.
I don't think they had the money to go out and sign that dominant pass rusher or that dominant tight end this year. They were trying to acquire Zach Ertz, but then they fell out of the running for that. I think it had to do with money, unless there was some other stuff behind the scenes that I'm not aware of. But like I was telling you last week, I think that's something that you address during the draft this year.
Yep.
They did sign a couple of guys. They got F.A. Obata, defensive end from Carolina. They got Jacob Hollister, a tight end who played with Josh Allen in college. So I feel like those guys can help. They can create competition. You get a few more during the draft, but it's going to be another, I would say next year is when you get more money and you can go out and really sign that dominant game-changing pass rusher or tight end.
Yeah, so going back to Burrita, like I mentioned, Kevin, he's a good, is he a 3-down back? He's definitely a good 3-down back. I know he can catch out of the backfield, and I know he's a good power runner. I know he might seem small, but I know with his time, I know he was in Miami, but what team was he on before that?
San Francisco.
Yeah, he definitely had good tenures with those teams, and I know I seen that he's a good 3-down back. So for the Bills, that's just a great signing because get them cheap and get the running backs that have experience, and that's what I've noticed this year. This free agency market this year with all the running backs, quarterbacks, all these positions, it seems like now everyone's been getting them very cheap and very reliable veterans and or, third or fourth year players that haven't really panned out well, who just need to change a location for a different team.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying last week. There's not enough money to go around right now. So you just got to get cheap veterans to come in and help. And Singletary and Zach Moss, those are 2 young guys in your backfield. You don't need to waste a draft pick on a 3rd young running back. That's why I like getting in a veteran who can help, and now he adds that speed element that we talked about.
Yep.
Because Zach Moss is a power back, Matt Burrita is the speed back, he can catch passes out of the backfield, and then Devin Singletary is a nice mix of the 2. So they definitely have a nice committee right now. So like I said, I think from here we're just going to see a few more signings, cheap veterans that can help, and then they further address it in the draft. But I'm still looking at pass rusher, tight end, and a hybrid on the defense. But going into free agency now, so we talked about the quarterbacks last week. Now, the running backs, this is where we ran out of time. So, again, Aaron Jones re-signed with the Packers. Kenyon Drake went to the Raiders. Chris Carson re-signed with Seattle. Leonard Fournette re-signed with the Buccaneers, who now have all 22 starters back from that Super Bowl team. James Conner, he's still a free agent. Mike Davis signed with the Falcons. James White re-signed with the Patriots. Jamal Williams went to the Lions. Kyle Juszczyk went back to San Francisco. Philip Lindsay went to the Texans, who they have another committee now. Tevin Coleman went to the Jets. And those are pretty much the main ones. Marlon Mack re-signed with the Colts. Carlos Hyde went to the Jaguars. But what are your thoughts about this free agent class of running backs?
Probably the 2 that really stand out for me is Mike Davis and Philip Lindsay, and here's why. So when Christian McCaffrey was hurt, Mike Davis really, pulled his weight and really showed that he could be a lead back in the league. And I think that, just for the Falcons, I think that's a good pickup. And Philip Lindsay, let's be honest, I think this might be his 4th year or 3rd year, but his rookie year, he had an amazing rookie year. He had 1,000 yards as an undrafted free agent. That rarely happens. So just for the Texans to get him in 1 year, and this is what I was talking about, Kevin. 1 year, $3.25 million. And I talked about the cheap guys that really didn't pan out. Lindsay had a great year, his rookie year. Then I think they signed Melvin Gordon. That must have been 2 years. I think this is his 3rd year, actually. So Melvin Gordon, they really wanted Gordon as their lead back in Denver. And so what do the Texans do? They sign him and get him for a cheap deal because, like I said, he didn't have a good time in Denver. He had a good year, but his whole tenure as a whole was not good. And now you guys were talking about with the NBA, with the draft stock and whatever. It's the same thing with running backs in the league. With their first homes, if they don't have a good first home, their free agency stock goes way down. And so with Lindsey, they got him for a $3.25 million. And I think that's a great deal, in my opinion.
Now we just have a few minutes left, so I'm going to move on to the wide receivers. I'm not going to read all these because there were a ton, so I'm just going to let you choose your top 3 or 4 that we can discuss here.
Yeah, so for me, I really liked how the Bears re-signed Allen Robinson. I kind of wish he went to a better, team because the Bears right now are in shambles and they're not really doing anything of note. Another one was, so the Jaguars haven't really had a good wide receiver in a couple years. They had Chris Conley and a bunch of guys who weren't really of note. And they signed Marvin Jones Jr., 2 years, $14.5 million. So he's a really good deep ball guy. He has really good jumping ability. So he'll be that throw it up, I'll catch it for whoever. If they get a couple weeks, we'll talk about the draft. If they want to go after Trevor Lawrence, if they go with, I don't even know what the deal with Minshew is now, but whoever they go with, I'm pretty sure Marvin Jones will make an immediate impact. And let's see here. I'm pretty sure because he's so young still, Juju was definitely a good, a re-signing for the Steelers because he came in the league when he was 20. I think he's only 24. He's still so young, and I think he'll be a great receiver for many years to come. So this was a good idea for the Steelers to hold him on for at least another year because it just says they re-signed him. So it's definitely just a 1-year deal at the moment.
One of my favorite deals was the Kenny Galladay deal with the Giants. 4 years, $72 million. Daniel Jones gets the number 1 receiver.
Oh yeah,
like
that is a good
last
one.
Week,
I didn't see that one, but yeah, that was great.
Like we said last week, they surrounded him with weapons now, so now it's up to him to see if he can take that next leap. Will Fuller went to the Dolphins. Corey Davis went to the Jets. Curtis Samuel went to Washington. Nelson Aguilar got a big deal from the Patriots. We'll see how that pans out.
Yeah.
Chris Godwin, franchise tagged by the Buccaneers. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, Aguilar's another example of that. Everyone made fun of him when he was in Philly. He couldn't catch, and he went to the Raiders and had a great year. Pretty like 800, almost 900 yards receiving. He had career highs in every aspect, and that really, the Patriots are like, you know what? Whoever our quarterback is, we need weapons, and I think. Look for Aguilar next year for fantasy. I'm telling you, he's going to be another sleeper pick.
Moving on now, just a minute left, so we'll just finish out the receivers here. So tight ends, a lot of big deals here. Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, like I said, went to the Patriots. Rob Gronkowski re-signed with the Buccaneers. Gerald Everett went to the Seahawks. Jared Cook out to LA with the Chargers, and then Kyle Rudolph went to the Giants. And like I said, Jacob Hollister went to the Bills. Tyler Kroft left the Bills for the Jets. So Tyler Eifert is the only remaining tight end here that's unsigned. But a lot of deals for tight ends here. So with the remaining 2 minutes that we have, if you want to talk about tight ends or any other receiver that we forgot to mention, the floor is yours.
So for me, I was very surprised how ready to gamble Belichick was. I wasn't, but I was. I knew that last season the Patriots were struggling. They needed something to really amp up their team, and I think these two additions at tight end will be good because tight ends are such a rarity, finding 2 good ones, and they did find 2 good ones. So I know that will be a great benefit for the team.
Yeah, I mean, the Patriots just came out with a bang. Bill Belichick said, I'm tired of going 7-9, and it was only 1 year. it's not the Patriot way. We're going to spend money. We have the money to spend, and we're going to build our team back again because we don't accept losing here in Foxborough. And that's what they've done. But I think the AFC East still runs through Buffalo after last year. I mean, I know it ran through New England for all those years, but I think right now it's the Bills division. Until New England can really solidify that they're back to the old Patriots. I mean, I don't think they'll ever be back to the old Patriots without Tom Brady. But until they can win the division, I think it's the Bills' division right now.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
And a couple of other wide receivers that I want to mention real quick. So we also had, like I said, Emmanuel Sanders went to the Bills. John Brown left the Bills for the Raiders. T.Y. Hilton re-signed with the Colts. A.J. Green went to the Cardinals. So that's really interesting, seeing him with DeAndre Hopkins and Larry Fitzgerald if he comes back.
What a great tandem right there.
Sammy Watkins went to the Ravens within this last week. And
Good riddance, too. He was too injury prone.
Yes.
Gonna miss him, though.
That was pretty much it for the big wide receivers, but we'll have to keep just trucking through this list. There were so many signings to get to. We'll have to do the offensive and then defensive lines next week, and then the rest of the defense the following week. And we got to throw special teams in there too. But Aaron, thank you for coming on, and thank you all for watching another episode of Sports Hour. We will be back next week. We are not off for the Easter weekend, but with that, have a good week and happy Easter.